Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. This tutorial is more informative in nature and comes to answer a question that I, as a vector artist, get asked a lot of times. Why do I work in vectors when it's more complicated than working with pixels? It's a super good question. While there is generally no right or wrong way to create your art, there are a lot of uses for vector graphics. For example, I'm also an icon designer and icons are always vector graphics. For logo design, UX, UI, and especially for anything printed, it's much better to work with vector files because they will look great no matter the size. A vector is not made of a limited number of pixels, like a photo for example. It is generated by software computing through mathematical formulas. Sounds complicated, but think of it this way. Here is a line made in a pixel software. If I zoom in, I will ultimately see the pixels of my stroke. And here's a line made with a vector. The path is made by these three dots or nodes, which then render the line in between. And depending on how these nodes are positioned on their type or how these two handles next to each node are moved, the line takes a different shape. Any vector path can be altered in many ways. So here's an example of how we can transform a shape. Let's draw a heart in the simplest way possible. First, let me add a guide. You'll see in a moment how this is going to help. Then I create a square with the shape tool. And for this, I hold one finger on the canvas, which preserves the 1:1 aspect ratio. Time to move it up against my guide. Now, with the node tool, I am adding another node by tapping on the path here, and I am extending it until it makes a 90-degree angle with my guide. I then change the node type from single to symmetric, and pull on the handle until I get this shape. Then simply repeat on the other side to finish the heart. Be sure to check the description box below for more pen tool exercises that will get you going. So a vector can be scaled infinitely without losing quality, which gives you a great advantage when you want to create a logo, for example. A logo is printed on something as small as a business card, but also on something as big as a banner. And a vector logo looks good no matter what. And it's not just a logo, but anything that is branding related, or that is meant to be shown in different mediums. Another thing I love about vector design is that each part can be moved and edited independently, without interfering with the rest. So, if I want to make this mushroom cap bigger, I can do it with just a few adjustments of its nodes. There is no real need to erase or redo in vector design because you can just grab the node tools and adjust your shapes however you want after they've been already drawn. So you can edit them infinitely without interfering with anything else on your canvas. In pixel design, you can achieve the same thing if you draw every single separated element on a separate layer. Vectornator does that for you in a way. As you can see here, all your objects are separated one from another. And by moving these shapes around, they can come to the foreground or go to the background if you want to change the order or perspective. And think about this. There's one vector graphic that you use all the time and you don't even notice. Fonts. Fonts are vectors, So if you want to design your own, it will have to be made in a software like Retonator. Let me show you a neat font trick. For example, in my icon here, I have written the letter A. But let's say I want to edit my letter in a way that goes beyond the text editor. I want to give it a gradient. So for that, I am going to select my letter, transform it into a vector shape, and now I can edit it however I want. I can give it a gradient, I can change its shape. There are really no limits. You can give a lot of depth and dimension to your vector illustration by adding shadows, creating gradients, and applying various blending modes that can give the effect of light reflection, frosted glass, glow, and so on. It's really up to your imagination how you apply all these functionalities. And finally, I also really love the small file size of a vector file. No matter how complex or how many elements it contains, it's still super small in size in comparison with pixel graphics. This happens because, as we mentioned before, vectors are made of endpoints connected by formulas and not individual pixels, which weighs a lot more. I hope I convinced you of the value of working with vector graphics. If you think about it, the most common graphic professional designers use are vectors. With each their own, but I do recommend you at least give it a proper try. If you want to learn how to use vectors, then continue watching. There's a lot of Vectornator tutorials that are meant to help you in this journey. Thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you in our next video. Bye!